advice that I would give to a coach that's sitting down to work with a young athlete is to let the athlete come up with the answers themselves and just try and facilitate the conversations without judgment or anything like that, and really just ask thought-provoking questions around how the athlete can come up with a way forward. I think quite often we're too keen to go in there and answer all the questions that need answering instead of letting the athlete come to the conclusion of what they need to work on, because ultimately that will give them the most buy-in into figuring out how they're going to, and they'll know their game better through this process if you allow them to come to those answers themselves. Some people will need a little bit of help along the way and a little bit of pushing here and there, but the less you can do that, the better, I would say.
I think in terms of accessing some of the deeper feelings and the deeper layers of a conversation that an athlete might not even know that they want to have, just the time and the space to sit there at a table with the player is so valuable in accessing that, because as I mentioned before, they realize really quickly that it is about them and it's a conversation for them to center themselves in the piece.
It's really to create an understanding. Often we have this mindset where we think we know, and it's not until we actually create a conversation with the athlete and become vulnerable or listening and seeking information that suddenly we create an understanding.
In terms of welcoming emotion into a conversation, I am absolutely for it. Like, I think that's where honesty sits, and not necessarily if they're having a reaction to something, if they're feeling threatened or they're feeling insecure and they might feel challenged by some element of the discussion, you might get some emotion from that, but that's leading towards what's the real anxiety there, and what's the real value that they're putting on something. So if they do get emotional, in a way that feels confronting for you as a coach, just remember that it's because it means something to them, it's important to them. And by extension, like, that conversation you're having about it is massively important to them. So it is to me. So I really welcome that level of honesty from players anytime.
I think it's important to observe and see how they kind of go about the card system and allow them to have that independence and do it themselves. And then once they've kind of done that as a coach, then you can provide your input, and whether it's they've put something that they're weak at that you think they're good at, be like, you're actually very good at this, like, why have you put that there? And I think asking questions rather than telling them this needs to go here, that needs to go there.
Just be really open from the start about the whole process, and just take your time through it. Don't feel like you have to rush through the process.
I think what I've found helpful in allowing a good conversation to develop is that patience and that ability to let the athlete sort of breathe and take time and think about how they want to discuss something, what is important. So I think we can probably all as coaches identify times where we realize we're trying to get to an answer, or we're trying to get to an outcome, and we're almost consciously or subconsciously driving towards that. So that's one thing I'd sort of warn against is to have an outcome in your mind or want to take them to a place. If you can be patient, I think that's when you get some really good information, some really good sort of angles that may develop that you may not be expecting, which is where you want to go with this conversation. I guess the level of information they want to share with me, anything really is a gift, because getting to know somebody on a deeper level is going to inspire more trust, more connection, and that is only a good thing going forward.
To coaches is listen, be really good at listening. I think this process is about asking the right type of questions that brings information out of the player. So I think try to really focus on not judging or not steering the players toward directions that you want them to head. I think the most important thing is that you get honest and I think it's really accurate information from them.
If you're worried or you're sort of anticipating maybe sort of a watershed conversation where all of these things are going to come tumbling out and you're not going to know how to deal with it, you're not going to have appropriate resourcing for that. And it may end up just being more of a headache, especially when you multiply that by many athletes in the program. I mean, I think we can all empathize with that scenario, but I don't actually think that the burden is on you to fix things. And so I think just the ability to be there, to hear it, to understand a little bit more about it or discover it, and then to be a place where that athlete can speak about it and work through that. We're not here to fix things for them. I think we are here to facilitate their reflection on it and their working through their own problems. We don't want to create athletes who are dependent on our solutions. That's something actually that Japan has really reinforced for me, is while they would love me to tell them what to do about something, I'm not helping them with that. It doesn't help them on the field. It doesn't help them with life. So to be a safe place for that conversation, and then to be a supportive ear and a supportive voice if necessary. And then where I can resource it, I will.